Hey guys, so I'm Ed Kennedy. I am teaching the class today on elderberries. Elderberries and elderberry syrup. So kind of why that's important, how we should use them, and what we can do with them. So I'm a homesteader. I have a third of an acre in southwest Littleton, which is a subdivision of the greater Denver area. I am a forager, self-sufficiency mentor, and jack of all trades. So I've done a lot of things and currently am working on our homestead here, also working on doing quite a bit of garden consulting and working with Slow Food Denver as well. I'm on their board and have helped as a backup instructor for their Cooking from the Garden program, which is an amazing experience. So today, we are going to look at elderberries. So my background, I've got 30 plus years in and around agriculture and self-sustaining. So I've done commercial agriculture, residential agriculture, production. I was a golf course superintendent, so I've just kind of been around it my whole life. But it started at a very young age for me, growing up in southwest Montana, where my family, basically we learned to live off of what we could grow in our gardens, what we could forage from the mountains, supplemented with the groceries and things we bought. And that's kind of where this whole love of natural medicine and healthy living kind of originated. So let's start by talking about what are elderberries. So I have a little experiment here I'm going to show you as we're talking. So I have just dried elderberries in a stainless steel tea ball. And I'm going to throw in just a couple lemon slices, a sprig of fresh rosemary, and we're just going to let it sit. And we'll come back to that because more than anything, we want to make sure it's simple. It's easy for you to use. So elderberries are a self-pollinating native deciduous shrub that's easy to grow very fast. 2 to 3 years, you can have elderberries growing in your yard. In our community, we have several residences that have shrubs that they use as decorative shrubs, where you keep them pruned. Now, I got to tell you, if you don't keep them pruned, they go wild and crazy. And that's kind of how I like them. So in the corner of our yard, I have 4 American elderberries planted in about a 12-foot space. That's probably the space I should have for one. So I'm hoping it just becomes this wild, chaotic berry fest in the corner of my yard. So been in there 3 years. We harvested last year, and that's what I'm working with today is our dehydrated elderberries. What part of the elderberry plant is useful? This is critical information for us. 2 parts specifically, the flowers. The flowers are cream to white colored and they grow in clusters. So if you imagine your hand is the stems, they grow kind of in a flat plane on the end of that. And they grow dense, super dense. They're very delicate. But so the flowers are useful, and the flavor profile of the flowers, if you're making an infusion or you're adding them to pancakes or something like that, is kind of a lychee grapefruit flavor. Very unique, very light, very aromatic. The berries, on the other hand, the only berries you want to use are the blue or the black ones. Red elderberries are poisonous. So you don't want to use red elderberries. Only the black and the dark blue. They range in size when they're fresh from about the size of a BB to about the size of a small pea. So you can imagine that, in a 6-inch clump, the density of them is intense. The birds go crazy for them. They'll be your #1 competitor there. But the flavor medley of the berries themselves are a grape, raspberry, blackberry kind of trio. So, and then of course for landscaping, those of you who might be in a rural situation, elderberries make a fantastic windbreak and a summer screen for those of us in kind of the urban corridor. that summer screen, a little bit of privacy is worth its weight in gold. So that's kind of that. They're both hummingbird, butterfly, and pollinator attractant as well. So that's a real plus in today's environment. So why do we use elderberry? So other than its amazing flavor, because I can tell you I make a tonic called goat burp that no one raves about the flavor. Elderberry syrup is phenomenal. That's the biggest thing that people are attracted to, is the flavor of it. So the Europeans have valued elderberries for their rich flavor and their reputed ability to prevent and cure many illnesses. There are many ways to add elderberries to your medicinal cabinet. One of which you can see already, hopefully you can see, if I put the white paper maybe, already the berries are starting to soak up in the water. The water's starting to turn purple. So what we're making there is just an infusion. So in the morning, if you don't have elderberry syrup made, a quick toss into a tea ball, into a glass of water all day long, you're slow sipping that elderberry and working that into your diet. Syrup, of course, as well, is another one. The benefits of elderberry syrup are its immune boosting qualities. So it provides traditional herbal support in helping prevent and recovering from the flu, from colds, excessive mucus, sore throat. There's a whole list of things, and anyone who's worked with elderberries really understands them to be a powerhouse in that way. They also contain large amounts of antioxidants, potassium, beta carotene, calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin C. So once again, you're just getting that slow sip of mega load nutrition. So why not just use the elderberries then? Why go through this whole hassle of making elderberry syrup? The key is in the combination. And that's what I want to kind of break down just a little bit for us today. One of the main things, obviously, is elderberries, but raw wild honey. So honey is not always honey. It's really important to know where your honey comes from. There's a study in 2018 that came out of Australia that estimates 50% of the honey that's mass market available has other additives in it, flavorings, if you will, to stretch it out. And of course, by doing so, whether that's fructose, corn syrup, whatever it is, that diminishes the quality of the honey. So it's really important to find a raw, unfiltered, preferably local if you can, so you get those local pollens and stuff in your honey. And also, of course, it supports the local producers. So one thing to know, though, about wild honey. So I have 2 jars. One of them has been thawed, and one of them hasn't. Raw, unfiltered honey will crystallize when it's at room temperature or lower. And so it forms a solid. And your honey is still great. It's just sugared. So all you have to do is put that in some warm water. I set mine by the wood stove a couple days ago, and just let it slowly warm up. You want to keep that temperature low so that you don't degrade any of the nutrition or the pollens or the yeasts or anything that are in it. That's part of why we want to use that, is to keep those in. Is raw unfiltered honey truly unfiltered? Is there a chance you're going to get bug legs and flower petals? No. So all honey is filtered. The raw unfiltered honey has just been put through a big porous screen to catch the large particles, the flower petals, any of that kind of stuff, chunks of beeswax. So you don't have to worry about it being truly, just like sticking your hand in the hive. It's, it has had some processing. Let's talk about cinnamon. Cinnamon is the other one. Cinnamon sticks. Cinnamon supports your immune system and helps protect you from foreign bacteria and viruses. Its antibacterial, antiviral, and antimicrobial properties can help support your body to help fight the viruses that produce cough and cold. So another powerhouse I know there's a lot of traffic on the internet about mixing cinnamon and honey. I suppose that's another show. So cloves, next, whole cloves, another powerhouse, supports your immune system by increasing your white blood cell count, and its additional antibacterial properties help protect against bacteria and pathogens. So cloves, very strong. You'll see, as you can see, we only use 3 whole cloves. If you're like me, kind of a wing it cook, you think if 3 is good, I bet 13 is awesome, and it's not, unless you really like cloves. So just bear that in mind as you're working with that. Raw ginger, of course, raw ginger, we love raw ginger. It helps fight infections, bacterial or viral, including those that cause sore throats, by promoting an immune response to kill viruses. It also may speed up recovery time. So with that said, I'm going to shake our infusion again, keep it rolling. Let's make some syrup. But before we do that, we've got to talk about sanitization. So I'm a certified Colorado cottage food producer. And what that basically means is I've received training and testing by the state to be able to produce products from my house to sell to the public. But in order to do that, you have a minimum amount of things you have to know how to do, because we're self-regulated. So, and I wanted to take this time because it seems like one of the most relevant conversations we have in life right now is sanitization. Also one of the hardest products to come by. So I downloaded from the Colorado State University some bleach sanitizer dilution rates. And I'd be happy to email those to anybody who wants to reach out to homesteader.ed@gmail.com. That's what I sanitized all of our cooking surfaces with, all of our utensils with. So I went in with a 100 parts per million. So basically, I just took straight bleach. Mine's concentrated, so it's at the top range. What is the top? Top range is 8.25%. So it's at the top of the range, but it's just standard bleach. I went in, and it's 1/8 of a teaspoon for a pint in a squirt bottle. All the instructions are on the sheet. You can make your own sanitizing solution, to keep you and your family, and possibly, if you gift it to friends or neighbors that we want to make sure we're safe. So I just wanted to touch base on that real quick to make sure that we're doing that. You can go as low as 50 parts per million. I'm not sure that in today's environment, low is what we're looking for. And you can go as high as 200 parts per million, which kind of seems like the nuclear response to me. I kind of like the middle of the road, do what we got to do for food so we don't get any off flavor. Of course, if I'm using it to sanitize a bathroom or a non-food surface, I say bring the big guns and hit it with that 200 parts per million solution. So, okay, this recipe is one that was given to me by my mother. It's one that my family uses and has used just forever. I'm not sure where it originated, so I can't claim to be, the brilliance behind it. I can just say that of all the elderberry syrups that I have tried, this one is still my absolute favorite. And once again, we're happy to share that recipe with anybody who wants it. Just shoot an email to Slow Food, or you can email me again at homesteader.ed@gmail.com, and I'm happy to share that and answer any questions for you there as well. So if you spend just a few minutes on the Googler, you'll see there are endless variations and adaptations of elderberry syrup. And so this truly is just one of hundreds. And you can tweak it any way you want. A lot of people don't like to put the ginger in, which is why I don't have an amount. I don't have an amount on the ginger because maybe you don't like ginger. I happen to love it, so I go a little heavy on the ginger. It's just a loose guide to get you to the syrup. So we're going to start out. Pot, I love to have a pot with a lid because I like to capture any of the essential oils that are escaping on the steam, kind of like you do with your cup of tea. when you place the saucer over it, or if you have a lid for it, but to kind of keep all those essential oils in with it. So we're going to start with our elderberries. So I've got my dried elderberries here. You can use 1 cup fresh or 1/2 cup dry. And this is my 1/2 cup. So we just drop those in, pretty straightforward. When they're dehydrated, they are really small. I wish there was a way I could show you that you could see, but alas, we'll have to wait to do that in person when we're no longer doing it on video. So our elderberries are in. 3 cups of water. Obviously, you're going to use whatever kind of water you have. I prefer filtered water over distilled, reverse osmosis, a lot of those other things. I prefer it because I believe it leaves some of the minerals and trace elements in the water, but just removes those, you know, chlorine, the things that you really wouldn't want in a medicine. So that's what I end up using. So 1 organic cinnamon stick. I don't break it up or anything else because we're going to boil it, and it will have time to rehydrate. The bark will slowly unroll, and it will infuse that fantastically. Once again, cloves, crazy potent, and I literally only put in 3. Much more than that, and it's a little too much for me, but you know, that's something you can play with for sure. Okay, ginger. Now we're to a place where we've got to make some decisions. Do you peel your ginger or not? I am not a person who likes to peel much of anything besides oranges. So for me, I have a vegetable brush, and I scrub it down as hard as I can, get into the nooks and crannies, and even in the crotch of it like that, I'll snap it off so that I can get in there and really scrub it off, but I leave that skin on as much as possible. So for today, though, if you do want to peel your ginger, I find the best way is just an ordinary spoon. And if you just hold it, you can just scrape the skin right off. This is a juicy one. So you can scrape that skin right off of there, and it's way easier than trying to whittle, you know, a Trojan horse out of the thing and possibly losing a finger. So no one's lost a finger with a spoon yet that I know. So first time for everything though. So use the spoon at your own risk. But yeah, in no time at all. And so for me, I normally use about a thumb, you know. This is pretty big, so I went a little smaller on it. But there's no rhyme or reason. I like to cut it up because we're only going to boil it for about 30 minutes. And I want to make sure to get as much of that ginger out of there as I can. Okay, so this is all in our saucepan. So you don't want to add the honey, because we don't want to heat the honey up to degrade the raw honey. It won't change the syrup as far as flavor. It changes the nutritional quality of it. We want to boil it to get all of the flavors, the nutrients out of the dry materials, but not heat the honey. All right, so I'm going to set this one aside. And just like magic, we've boiled it for 30 minutes. We have, once it, you know, and you just bring it to a rolling boil. We're not boiling the life out of it. We're just getting it up to where it's a good solid roll, and then we're turning it down, leaving that lid on, set a timer for at least 30 minutes. We want it to be at least 30 minutes in a simmer. So, and once we do that, I mean, you can see the ginger's absorbed a bunch of stuff. I mean, there's here's the cinnamon. It has completely gotten soft. So we're really set there. Then we get to use one of my favorite tools, the ultimate masher. I don't know if anybody has one of these, but everyone should. It's like spring-loaded. It's like the ultimate kitchen gadget. But so basically, I just take it, smash and spin, smash and spin. We're just trying to press out whatever juice is left in that ginger and in those berries. I can smell the cloves, the 3 cloves in there already. So your whole house is going to smell definitely spicy. Definitely spicy. Not pumpkin spicy, thankfully, but definitely got some spice to it. After we finish mashing, we're just going to take and we're going to strain what's left. So any number of ways you can do that. You can, a sieve, a colander, a cheesecloth, a nylon bag, whatever you have. I guess you could use a t-shirt if you wanted, but maybe sanitize it. I'm just saying. So what we do then is we just take our mix. I dump it through, attempting not to splash it all over my wife's counters. And I like to shake out as much of the stuff as I can. I go back to my spatula, and then I just press it. I don't mind floaters in my syrup. I'm not making cocktail syrup. I'm making medicine. So if it's got some fibers in it, if it's got a little bit of haze, it's medicine. It's medicine. It doesn't taste like medicine. I have one client who will make a batch and pour it into a glass cup and drink it over the course of the day. That's 3 cups of honey water. I promote a little better moderation than that, but you know what? She loves it, so it's what she does. But I don't go too crazy. I just try to get the bulk of it out of there. Once I have that, I set that aside, and now we're back to where we should have been. Now, so we've boiled it for 30 minutes. And then just after 30 minutes, I remove it from the heat. I set it on a baker screen, just a little rack on the stove, just so it can slowly cool down. I let it get warm, because if your base is too cold, your honey doesn't want to mix into it. And then there's a lot of stirring. So that's no good. If it's still fairly warm, this is a little warmer than room temperature, and it could be even warmer than that. I wouldn't want it to be steaming when I added my honey. I'd want to make sure the steam was gone, but I'd want it to be nice and nice and warm, so that honey. I'm going to rinse this off real quick. I apologize, but that way your honey, doesn't come out on the steam or anything else. And we still are working with our raw, unfiltered honey at this point, which is what's ideal. So we're just gonna scrape this out. And you can never get all the honey out of a jar. So what I do is I put the cap back on it, and the next time I want to have a glass of tea or I want to sweeten up my infused water, I hit it with a little hot water, shake it all around. Honey comes right off. You have a sweet water. You just dump right into your stuff. So then you're good to go. All right. So basically, we're just going to stir this and get it to mix in. And you'll know. You can see it's still kind of droopy, kind of weak pancake syrup look. But and by the way, another great use for elderberry syrup. Don't think of it just as medicine. It's fantastic on pancakes, like blueberry syrup. It's even better on ice cream, which kind of defeats the medicine purpose of it. But hey, as long as no one's watching, it's your story. You can do whatever you want to do. But yeah, we're stirred up. Now this one actually might even be just a little bit cooler than I would have liked, but I didn't want to bore you with watching water boil. So I went ahead and did it this way. But let's look at the bottom. Oh yeah. It's Close enough. We'll stash that. At this point, what's left? Just one thing. Fun bottling. I mean, if you're going to have it, you should fun bottle it because you're going to want to give it to someone. So we just pour it out. Pour it into bottles. You can do mason jars. You can do, I better watch. About like that. So that one's for the neighbor. This one's for me. Elderberry syrup will keep, we'll put it this way. I've never had elderberry syrup last as long as they say it can. They say it can last 2 to 3 months in a refrigerator. I can tell you that my family, we rarely have to refrigerate. We can just leave it on the counter. How do you take elderberry syrup? I take it just in a glass. So about a tablespoon once a day. So nice. So nice. So I do have some recommendations for you, and I'll put them on the recipe as well when I send them out. I'm going to close these though because I know how this goes. I'm going to knock one off, and then we're going to have another show on cleanup. So let's see here. Yeah, take 1 tablespoon daily to ward off illness. Take 1 teaspoon every 2 to 3 hours while you're sick. And you just have to put this out there. Anytime you give it away or you make it for a friend or anything else, if they have children under 2 years of age, there's some questions about raw honey and exposure to the microbes. And so I always just make sure that they know, listen, you can still give them elderberry syrup. Give it to them in a glass of warm water before bed. Something that's warm enough that it's going to kill off those microbes, then let it cool. An elderberry tea, it makes a phenomenal elderberry tea before bed. You know, but once again, we want to make sure people are safe, and that's the key to the whole thing. I have people ask, can you OD on it? You know, you're never going to get an elderberry high. You know, you're never going to experience that. At the end of the day, it's a food product, you know. So like everything though, I think moderation is probably the best bet. And that's what I would recommend. It's honey based. So at the end of the day, you are getting a pretty significant load of sugar, but we all know that the healing benefits of honey are, you know, outweigh the sugar aspects of it as well. Okay, let's talk about other ways to use elderberries. So our elderberry water, if this sits for about an hour, it'll be purple. So, and what a great thing to have in your home office or to take to work with you. I make one for my wife every morning. She takes, or used to take to work when we used to go to work. You know, but it's something you can sip on all day long, just keep refreshing. So that's easy. The tea balls, you can get those on eBay. They're just stainless steel tea balls. Lesson learned though, make sure to pay attention to the size, because if you don't get the right size, they won't fit in your water bottle. And then you have a stack of them downstairs in the pantry that you're like, those are beautiful but useless. So really pay attention to that. Let's see, for elderberries themselves, you know, there's obviously wine, jam, syrup, pies, infusions, and baking. Don't forget about baking. If you're using dry berries, rehydrate them in a little water. It's like a dried blueberry. We have them in blueberry muffins and pancakes all the time. So add a little water, rehydrate them, use them in place of blueberries. They have a very unique flavor in that regard. The flowers are different. So obviously there's teas, infusions, wine, other culinary uses. You can add them to pancakes or fritters. That kind of adds a light aromatic flavor to them. I find that it's best to use fresh elderberries. I did try to dehydrate my elderberries or my blossoms last year, and it changes the flavor. I tried to make some homemade Saint Germain, and it wasn't bad, but it was not what I had hoped or had aimed for. So just real quick, when you're harvesting fresh berries, your best friend is going to be a conventional fork. So you're going to pick that whole cluster, whether you're in it for the blossoms or for the berries. You're going to pick that blossom, you're going to bring it in the house, and you're just going to slowly rake off, and it's going to pop those berries and those blossoms off and leave the stems, which are poisonous, behind. So the stems and the leaves, no good. Berries, black or dark blue, that's what we're after, or the blossoms. I did think it was important to address a safety issue. The United States Department of Agriculture states, and I'm going to read this, it's really short, but the active alkaloids in elderberry plants are hydrocyanic acid and sambucus. Both alkaloids will cause nausea, so care should be observed with this plant. Warning, the fruit of all elderberries should be cooked to degrade the alkaloid compounds before consuming. So we did that. We cooked our berries for 30 minutes. There should be no issues there. I've never had anybody have any issues from elderberry syrup. And I don't really know anybody who eats them raw, but I guess there's a first time for everything. So, okay, let's see. When do you, we're going to skip that part. That's kind of boring. So yeah, we'll let that part go. Dehydration. Dehydrating the berries is super, super easy. And you don't have to have a ton of equipment. Most elderberries, like the elderberries I grew up on, we didn't have elderberry plants. They grew in the ditches. So we harvested them, we foraged them, brought them home, washed them, cleaned them up, and dried them that way. If you have access to a dehydrator, that's ideal. You put in your berry tray, you kick it on, dehydrate them away. If you don't, you can do them in an oven on your lowest setting. Be sure to put them on a piece of parchment paper. It's going to make it way easier to get them off and to corral them when they're little BBs of chaos. You're going to want that parchment paper to help with that. And if you don't have any of that and you really want to go this route, you can go old school, like a million people have done before. You take off 2 window screens. You wash your screens, pour your berries out on a screen, put another screen over the top of it to keep the birds and stuff out, set it outside in a place where it gets lots of sun and air movement. And they'll dry just like that. Put them in a quart jar, save them for later. So commercial availability, flowers and berries are commonly available online. I will tell you that right now, given the condition of the world, elderberries are a prime commodity. I've worked at several health food stores, and it's not uncommon to receive a shipment of bulk elderberry, and in 2 days, it's gone. People really watch for it and really move on it. So when you do see the opportunity to get some, and you think you might use them, they store forever, pick some up. Keep a little jar, doesn't take much, and you can make yourself some syrup that way. That pretty much wraps up my presentation on elderberries and homemade elderberry syrup. I thank you for your kind attention, and we'll try to answer whatever questions you have.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ed. That was awesome. And there's so many great little tips in there too, beyond just making elderberry syrup that I will find helpful later. Okay, I'm going to send some questions to you that came in during the presentation. And maybe just since you just mentioned it, we'll go back to that and any more tips on harvesting elderberries in the wild. I think I'll add to that sort of locating and harvesting elderberries in the wild. And do you have any tips on that?
So like any berry, anytime you're foraging, you want to make 100% sure you have the right plant product you're looking for. So I would say get a good field guide. Every garden guide has elderberries in them. And I can't stress that enough, because there's enough times where you think you got it right, and the consequences for not could be pretty drastic. But then once you do find it, they love, think of old dirt roads. They love the edges of forests, the edges of roads where the water washes off the road, and gets on the sides, you're going to see that they have a very distinct kind of a long, narrow leaf. They grow on canes, so it's not often to see them, with anything big. It's mostly about the size of your finger, that comes up. And then once you identify the blossom, you can see it a mile away because it's just hundreds of blossoms in that one area. They're very pliable, but they can grow 10, 15 feet tall. So you just grab the cane and walk it down, snip off the whole clump. Be sure to leave some for the birds and some for the bees, and do your part there.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. And then since you did mention how to dry them, someone is asking if you can freeze dry them.
I would have to assume you can. I mean, they freeze dry ice cream, let's be honest. So I would have to assume you can. I've never seen freeze dried elderberries.
Okay, me neither. So something to explore. And then could you mention again the honey you said you like? And I think folks, if you're on the Zoom call, we'll send an email and maybe we can get Ed's couple favorite honeys and Ed's couple favorite places to go to get elderberries in that email to you that we'll send out after this. But maybe you could mention that honey one more time.
Sure. I get my honey in bulk off of eBay, and they sell in smaller quantities. But when I buy my honey, I can't remember how many pounds it is, but it comes basically in giant Mylar bags. And I buy it in bulk because I can get it down to like under $4 a pound for wild, raw wildflower honey. Basically, I just bring it home. I cut the end of the bag off. I repackage it into my quart jars. And that way it's much more usable for me. But the company that I have had the best luck, and I really like their honey, is on eBay, and the seller's name is Honey Dauber. And I've had great results from them. I actually have honey on the way from them now.
Excellent. We'll send out a link. We actually had a session recently on Slow Food Live of beekeeping basics, and that was run by Jennifer Holmes, and she sells a wonderful honey online. Her brand is called HANI, Honey Company. And I wonder, Ed, I think that you might be sourcing quite a lot more honey than most of us might need in one go. So are there advantages to getting honey locally from bees that are, using the pollen in my local area?
For sure. The local honey is the best, especially for people who struggle with allergies. It's you're getting the bees forage the wildlife, the tundra around you, and that's what triggers all of our allergy situation. And so it helps to build up. You're constantly kind of feeding it, and there's been a lot of research in the local honey impacting specifically allergy patients and helping them kind of get over that hump there.
Great. I have the advantage of living near a lot of orchards. So something that I discovered after living here for a while is the farm stands that are selling apples and peaches often have honey because they need those bees to make those apples and peaches grow. So as soon as I started figuring it out, then I had an eye for it. And I thought, the quart jars of honey are kind of in the corner over there, but they're there. So I'd say keep an eye out at your local farm stands, or if you've got a farmer's market that's running right now, maybe ask the host where you can find some honey locally. Great. So I think this is a tricky question because at the moment, the possibility of getting your hands on some elderberry is getting a little thin. So we have a producer in the Slow Food USA world called River Hills Harvest, but someone has let us know that they're sold out right now. So where to find elderberry, both if I just don't have the access to get it in the wild, if I live in a city, or if they're sold out, I'd rather buy it online. I know that I looked for it about a week ago from a producer that I really love here in Oregon, and she was sold out as well. But I think that, could you offer up some ideas of where I might look for elderberry, knowing that they may not have any right now, but we can keep looking, and where would you source it, or where could I source it if I wasn't getting it from the world around me?
For sure. the place I've had the best for here is Natural Grocers. They buy in bulk, repackage, and they do a really good job of trying to stay ahead. Of course, the demand right now is crazy, and like most things, when people, out of sight, out of mind. So all summer long they'll be stocked with elderberries, and in the fall, they won't. So definitely get it when you can. But for me, I just keep an eye out. If I'm going to Sprouts, if I'm going to Whole Foods, if I'm going to to any of the local stores or even the mom and pop health food stores, I always swing through that area because you can always use more elderberries.
And sometimes I find them in my grocery store here. They're in the spice section, so they might not be where you think they are. So I'd encourage you, if you're going to a grocery store, ask someone, or maybe look in the bulk dry goods. That might not be where you would go for if you have berries on the mind.
For sure.
So might take a minute to find them. Okay, great. And I think that, well, one other question that I am actually curious about is, you took the ginger skin off for this preparation, but you mentioned that you like to keep the ginger skin on. When would you keep it on?
I would never take it off. I would literally, I would scrub it as hard as I can. I do the same with my potatoes, my carrots, all of my root vegetables. I scrub it aggressively with a brush, and you can use toothbrush, whatever you've got, nail brush. And then I just slice it into rounds, into coins, and put it right in the water and go from there.
Perfect. A lot of nutrition in those skins, as I understand, and that goes for just about everything.
Just about everything.
Great. Okay, and I do want to mention that I will include the link here. We've got a lot of viewers on our Facebook live stream, so thanks for being here, everyone. And I do want to mention that somebody has mentioned a doctor's recommendation and a reminder that elderberry syrup is a preventative. It's to boost your immune system, and maybe Ed, you can speak to this a little bit more, but if you have symptoms of any sort of illness, particularly COVID, please consult your doctor before using elderberry syrup as a medicine. So I think I will let Ed confirm this, but for me, I take it at flu season. I use it kind of in the morning. I'm not sick. I just want to take a little bit of it in the morning to give my immune system that boost. And is that the right way to use it? And just please be careful. If you have any symptoms, please consult your doctor before using it in that way.
For sure. And I don't think you can stress that enough. I want to be really clear that it's not a medicine. It's not meant to treat any more than a bowl of chicken soup is going to. It's supportive, and that's its role. Not treatment, not, you're not going to drink a gallon of it and not get COVID-19. That's not what it's there for. It's there to support your system. So to think of it as medicine is not correct, but to think of it as a supportive part of a diet, of an exercise program, of all that, that's the way you want to think about it. And certainly, if you want to use your common sense, and if you're feeling like you've got something more serious, you need to take more serious action.
Great, thank you. And we'll include a link to some different sort of immune boosters from a university medical department that just kind of lets you know what you should use things for and when we should use them. But I agree with Ed. I think the flavor of elderberry syrup is fantastic. I haven't gone so far as to drink a whole cup of it, but I sure don't mind that little dose of it in the morning. It's got that sweet honey taste, and I like my honey so much that I think it's a really nice flavor, and a really great little habit or ritual, especially right now where we all want our immune systems to be as strong as they can be. So if you can get your hands on some elderberries, enjoy, make yourself some syrup, keep it around, and keep an eye out, I think, for restocking. My hunch is that those folks will restock quickly, and you can get those into your home as soon as possible. I will ask one last question, Ed. What is the season of elderberries? When should I expect to start seeing their blooms and or their berries? Of course, depending where you are, the seasons will change, but what kind of temperature
For sure. So there's so many different varietals of elderberries. Like my American elderberries, they're already producing now. I've got, well, Saturday it was 70 degrees. Yesterday it was 20, and we've got 6 inches of snow. But my elderberries still are putting out shoots as we speak. So I anticipate we'll see blossoms in June. And then they go pretty quick. The blossoms are fairly fragile. And so then, you look at July, maybe August for the bulk of your berry harvest.
Excellent. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Ed, for being here. This has been very cool and I think very, very useful for many of you at home. I know that I plan to try this myself at home, and I really appreciate your time and energy today. And I'm glad you mentioned the American elderberry. That is actually part of the Slow Food Arc of Taste. So if you're a plant geek like me, jump on to the Slow Food International website and check out the Arc of Taste. It is a catalog of endangered and or culturally and historically significant plants. The idea being that the more awareness we have of them, the more we can keep them in cultivation and production in our world. We are always promoting biodiversity, and these varieties are important for increasing biodiversity. And on that note, we have the Plant a Seed campaign happening right now as well. And that is a really fun spring campaign, and particularly relevant right now, maybe more than ever before, with so many people at home planting gardens. So it's a kit of 5 different Arc of Taste seeds. I've got them started on my dining table right now, and we're still shipping them out. We still have some left. So if you've got a garden and you want to get some seeds in there, jump onto the Slow Food website and grab yourself a Plant a Seed kit, and you'll get free shipping if you use the code SlowFoodLive. So we're trying to get these to your homes as easily as possible so you can get them in the ground. And with that, thank you once again, Ed. We're really grateful for you sharing this knowledge with us. This is huge, and hope that you all take good care and stay healthy and keep doing things like elderberry syrup in the morning to keep yourselves healthy on a daily basis now and moving forward. So thanks again, Ed, for so much for being here today. And take care, everybody.
Be safe.